Chef Lynn. Welcome to the Flavor Secrets Kitchen. Today on deck we have some smoked chicken tacos. We're going to add a little bit of thinly sliced jalapeno and we'll make some avocado cream. I'm going to show you how to smoke your own chicken without a lot of equipment, and I'm going to show you a really neat thing to do with the leftovers, how to make a little party appetizer out of practically nothing, simply leftovers. So as usual, we'll start with the thing that takes the longest, and that's the roasted tomatoes that will go in these great tacos. I've got some plum tomatoes here and very little equipment. As you can see, I've got a cookie sheet, and this is actually a baking rack just to set baked goods on to cool. So I just put the legs down because that makes it easier to carry, and I've cut these tomatoes into quarters. So here I've got only 4 tomatoes, 4, 8, 12, 16. When I cut them into quarters, I did it like this, once halfway through, and then halfway through again. And then take off any little bits of stem that you find there. Usually there's just a little tiny bit. I like to take it off so that every single thing I put on someone's plate is totally edible. So we'll arrange those evenly on the rack. And I've got these on a rack because I want the air in the oven to circulate around them so that they'll dry out really quickly. Whenever you dehydrate something, you wildly increase the flavor. So that's the reason that we're doing this. So I've got these quarters. Next thing I want to do is take some really high quality olive oil. And I'm going to goop this up here like this and put it on all of the tomatoes. It's easier if you hang on to your tomato with one hand like this and then put your olive oil on here. I'm using some Laudemillo today. I'm probably saying that wrong. Somebody write in and correct me. But this is the time to use your high quality olive oil because you'll really taste it. Once you've got these tomatoes covered with olive oil, next thing is just a little bit of salt on each one. Just a tiny little bit. It's easy if you do it with your fingers like that, then you know you just get a little pinch. And then I want to take some pepper. I like this Lawry's mixed pepper really well. It looks pretty on things because it's got different colors in it. It's got all different kinds of peppers that taste just a tiny little bit differently. So there's our pepper on there. And now I'm headed over. I've got an oven preheated to 350 degrees, and I'm going to put these in there for an hour. About those tomatoes that we just put in the oven, number one, you can do those ahead. You can also do them on all different kinds of temperatures. You can dry them out a lot more slowly if you want to, but I usually do them in just an hour because I'm always making them at the last minute before my meal. But you can make them days ahead and they'll keep for 4 or 5 days in the refrigerator. Now let's move on to the chicken, the next ingredient that takes the next amount of time. So what I've got here is some chicken breasts, and I took the pounding mallet last night and pounded them out just a little bit so that they're all the same thickness so that they'll cook at the same amount of time, using the same amount of time. So I pounded those out, I got them wet and washed them, and I sprinkled them with salt and pepper. Then as you can see, I put them on another cookie drying rack on top of a cookie sheet, and I just put them in the refrigerator overnight. I did not cover them, and there's a reason for this. When you smoke things, first it's important to create what's called a pellicle. And the pellicle is what attracts the smoke. And that's this little bit of a dried layer that's on top of the chicken and on the bottom of the chicken because we had it on a rack that will attract the smoke. And still, now don't worry, this will be a really light smoke when we're finished. It will not be overpowering at all. Now I'm using a smoker that I bought online. You can find them. This one happens to be Cameron's, that's the brand, but there are lots of different ones. You do not have to buy a smoker though. Let me tell you about this one and then I'll tell you how you can make your own. So this has basically 4 pieces. It's got a handled roasting pan. It's got the top. It's got a little rack inside, and then it's got a drip pan. But your drip pan could be something as simple as a quarter cookie sheet, and you could use a regular roasting pan for this as long as it has a tight cover. And make sure that you have a little rack. Again, you can use the same idea here, just a little baking rack or something, and put it right inside a regular roasting pan. So the regular roasting pan then becomes your smoker. You don't have to go out and buy this piece of equipment. Now when you start, if you spray whatever you've got on the bottom for a drip pan with PAM or some kind of baking spray, it'll make your cleanup a little bit easier. But realize if you're going to make your own, make sure that's a pan you're ready to part with because it will blacken. And blackening is good, that means you're using it. So spray it a little bit to help, but realize that it's going to get black. Now all I'll do is, actually I'm going to spray my rack too a little bit, just to make sure that my chicken doesn't stick too much. Just a little bit. And then move my chicken into the pan. Oops, I forgot one thing, and that is to put the smoking chips in. These are little tiny smoking chips you can buy online, and you only need about a tablespoon each time you do it. You put them underneath the rack in the middle. Tablespoon is plenty, and I've got them piled up here just a little bit. Then put the rack down. Don't forget the chips, Chef Lynn. And then put your chicken on top. And we don't want the chicken to be touching each other because we want the smoke to be able to get all around the chicken breast. Cooking time on this is going to be just about 35 minutes, and I can fit 3 of them in the pan here. So I'll do this in 2 batches. And I've got the tenderloins underneath the breast so that they don't overcook. This little piece here is the tenderloin. It's just like a tenderloin of beef, but it's the tenderloin of chicken, the most tender part, the part that gets exercised the least. It's this little piece along the back there. Okay, now all I have to do is put the chicken on, put the top on, and when you make your own, if you make your own, remember that you need to have a top that's tightly fitting. You can see that this one has a little ridge along the side here, and so it snaps on there and holds it down. Now all I have to do is put my burner on. Actually, I'm going to put it on this back burner, put that on medium heat, and let her go for about 35 minutes. The other important thing to remember when you're cooking, when you're smoking in the house, is to turn on a fan. It's really important to have a high quality fan going at the time you're smoking, because a little bit of smoke will start to escape there as it cooks. Now you can also use this smoker outside if you want to. Just put it in the middle of your grill. But this might surprise you. You don't put the cover down on the grill. You leave the cover to the grill open and just use the cover to the smoker. And the reason is because you've got to have a lot of direct heat underneath in order for those chips to start to smoke. So do it outside or do it inside. If you want to do a whole chicken, you can use this kind of smoker too. If you want to do a whole chicken, just put the chicken on there, but obviously the top won't fit. Then all you have to do is cover the whole thing with a heavy-duty tin foil and make sure you crimp the sides of the tin foil all around the smoker, and you're good to go. You can smoke anything now. Just pay attention to how long you do it, because like anything, you can overcook it. For example, a piece of salmon might only be 20 minutes. The chicken will be about 35. So you can see that that chicken is already starting to smoke here. Don't forget your fan. It's really important if you're doing it inside. So now what I'm going to do is to assemble all the rest of the ingredients while the chicken is cooking, so that as soon as it comes off, we can just chop that up and put it hot on the table so that people can build their own tacos, or you can assemble them for them if you want to spoil them a little bit. I usually, well, I can't say usually, I do both. But today I'll assemble them so you can see how I would put it together. First, I've got some jalapeno pepper here. Jalapeno pepper looks like that. It's very hot. Sometimes it'll even cause trouble when you're chopping it, but today these seem to be okay. I'm trying to chop these as thin as I can, and one way to do it is to hold your finger exactly next to the knife so you know exactly where to cut. It gets kind of hard when you get down to that little end, so you can just leave it. You can chop these up more if you want to distribute them through, or if you have people who don't like them, you might want to leave them in rings so that they can take them out. So I'll move these over here. Remember that what's hot about the pepper is the seeds. So if you have people who like it really hot, include the seeds. If you don't, you can take a few minutes and just sort of whisk those seeds out of there. I have some people here who like it really hot, so I'll add all the seeds in there and they can get them as hot as they want to. So that's the jalapeno pepper. Just a few people in my family like it hot, so I'm just using 1 pepper, but use as much as you like depending on the heat tolerance of your family. Next, we want to have some lettuce. I'm going to use a bigger knife for this because I want to make this into a little chiffonade. This is some washed leaf lettuce, and it's red leaf lettuce. There's red leaf lettuce and there's green leaf lettuce, and they have so many more minerals and so fewer, like half the calories of iceberg lettuce. So it's really worth making the switch to leaf lettuce if you want to. Of course, you can still use iceberg lettuce. It's got a lot of fiber content, and it's good for you too, very low in calories, but leaf lettuce is just that much better. Okay, that's how easy it is to cut it into chiffonade. Just put the leaves together and then go through it with a knife. So there's my lettuce. forgot for a second there which bowl I wanted to put it in. It's also beautiful. It's a little bit curly and looks really nice. I like to use that in wrap sandwiches and other things too. I've also got some cheese here. This is grated Monterey Jack mixed with cheddar. That's what I like to use. I also like to use the hot pepper Monterey Jack and grate that. It's really great on tacos because it adds a little bit of spice. But use whatever combination of cheese you want. There's also one in most stores called a Mexican mix. That's really good. It's kind of mild and will be really nice for everybody, and then they can add their own heat. No sense to put it into the cheese. Now, the last thing we need to do is to make our avocado cream. And I'm doing this in a food processor, but if you want to work a little harder, you can mash the avocado and do it by hand. You don't have to have a food processor to do it. Okay, my ingredients are down here. I've got a cup of sour cream, a lime, and an avocado. And that's all there is in avocado cream. So the first thing we want to put in the food processor is the thing that needs to be ground up the most, and that's the avocado. So I'll cut this lengthwise with a large knife and kind of press the knife in. That pops off and the pit comes out. So it's real easy to do. Got to be a little bit careful with that. And I want to get the whole avocado, this is a really nice one, into the food processor. So I'm just going to take a spoon and take it right out like that and drop it right into the food processor. And then we're going to turn this on and pulse it a little bit just to grind it up. Okay, here's my top. I always put this on backwards, so for once I'm not going to, left to right. There we go. And then we'll just pulse it a little bit to chop up the avocado. Very quickly you can see the avocados all up on the sides, so I'm going to take a spatula and wipe that down just a little bit, scrape that down, and then do it again. Very quickly it happens again, so I'll just do it again because I want this to be really chopped up and almost creamy. And I can help that stay under the blade by pushing it down now with the spatula. This will be the last time. We'll pulse that. Okay, now all we have to do is to add our sour cream. 1 cup of sour cream to 1 avocado. This actually makes a really pretty light green sauce to put on your tacos. Gives it a little extra punch with the avocado. So let's just put this top back on here and give it another mix. You want this to be mixed up really well. Okay, that looks very good. Now I'm just going to remove it from the food processor and put it in my bowl. Isn't that beautiful? All I have to do is add a little bit of lime juice now and spice that up a little bit. And we're good to go. So I'm going to cut my lime in half here and use just a half a lime juice. I like to use a little sieve here, just maybe 2 squeezes of lime juice for that amount of cream I think is enough. And we want to use a little bit of salt, just a pinch, and a little bit of white pepper this time because our cream is very light colored and I don't want to have really dark specks in it. You can use darker pepper if you want to. Nobody's going to, the food police are not going to come out and tell you not to do that, but I just like to use the lighter pepper. All right, now I'll just mix that in. And we've now got all of our ingredients prepared to make our tacos. The only other thing we need are our corn tortillas. Corn tortillas are traditional for tacos. People do use flour tortillas also, but traditionally it's the corn. So here are our tomatoes straight from the oven. As you can see, they're a little bit shriveled up and dehydrated, but they're still very juicy. And we've done this again to concentrate the flavor. They're absolutely delicious now. We've already put salt and pepper on them, so there's nothing else to do but put them in our serving tray here. You can make lots of these at once for a party. As I said, make them a day ahead. Use them on sandwiches, or I mean, they just have a million gazillion uses. I love dried tomatoes, oven-dried tomatoes. Okay, now it's time to check our chicken. It's been in here exactly 35 minutes. Remember that the pan is hot. Don't forget your hot pads. I'm just going to pull off the top here. If you have a roasting pan, it's actually even easier because you can just lift the top off. And they're just looking gorgeous. You can see the bottom of the pan is a little bit black, but not too bad. The pan really does help with the cleanup. To be absolutely sure that my chicken is done, I can stick a thermometer in here. We want it to be 165, then you know your chicken is safe. All right, exactly, 165, perfect. Now all we need to do is chop our chicken. I'm gonna use these tongs over here. Bring my chicken out. Oh, is that gorgeous or what? 3 beautiful pieces of smoked chicken, very moist and tender, absolutely gorgeous. Okay, so let's chop that up really quickly. I'm just going to go through it like this and have some nice pieces of hot, tender chicken. If you've taken your chicken in the thickest part to 165 degrees, don't worry if it's a tiny little bit pink. Just make sure that you check it in the thickest part. And realize that white meat and dark meat cook differently. White meat cooks faster, so that's why it's a little bit problematic sometimes to cook a whole bird because the breast gets finished before the legs. All right, now it's time to make our tacos. Let's push this out of the way. And you can warm your tortillas if you want to. If they're very fresh, they're probably flexible enough. These are flexible enough, so I'm not going to warm them today. But to build my tacos, all I need to do is put my meat in first. I'm going to put a generous amount in here. Then I like to put a little bit of the cream. Actually, I like to put a lot of the cream, don't tell. My sun-dried tomatoes, or oven-dried tomatoes, excuse me. A little bit of lettuce, a little bit of cheese, and then if you like it, the jalapeno. Now that's a beautiful taco that's a little bit different that I think anyone would enjoy. Okay, let me make a couple more of those very quickly. And then I'll show you a really neat thing to do with the hors d'oeuvres. A little bit of cream, a little bit of tomato, a little bit of lettuce. Doesn't really matter what order you do this. A little bit of cheese, and a little bit of jalapeno. Yum. I think it's always nice to give people 3 tacos. What's not to like? That's about the perfect amount of food for one person for lunch or dinner. Lettuce, tomato, cheese, and a little bit of jalapeno. And there you go. A beautiful taco dish that's full of color and lots of vibrant colors and lots of intense flavor. Now I want to show you what you can do if you have these ingredients left over. I'll show you a really neat idea for a little hors d'oeuvre. So here's a neat idea for an appetizer that you can make for the next day after you make your tacos. So let's say you have just a little bits of all of these things left. I've got the chicken, the cheese, the jalapenos, the tomatoes, lettuce, and the cream. And what I want to do is give everybody just a little bitty taste of this intense flavor. And hopefully it's different people than ate the tacos, so they won't know, but if it's the same people who ate the tacos, they'll be impressed. What we're going to do is make these little spoons. You can find little spoons like this at lots of places, Williams-Sonoma, Sur La Table, Crate and Barrel. Lots of stores carry them. And I'm just chopping this up just a little bit so that we have little tiny bits of flavor to put in our spoon. A little bit of tomato here. You don't even need that much, and you've got a really kind of fun, different appetizer that looks like you went to a lot of work to make it because it's got so many different little ingredients. And then we'll just take a tiny little bit of lettuce too and chop it up a little bit more. I'm kind of running out of cutting board space here, but that's okay. All right, nothing else needs to be chopped, so we've got on each spoon a little bit of chicken. And remember, we want this to be just a bite. We want the chicken to be the predominant flavor. And I think you can see by the color that this is a very, very lightly smoked chicken. Absolutely delicious and done without a huge smoker that you have to spend a lot of money on and have outside. So let's leave the lettuce. Let's put the tomato next. Just a tiny little bit of tomato on each one. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I needed like a quarter of a tomato just to give a little bit of taste. And remember, that taste is really, really strong. I'll put just a tiny little bit of jalapeno on each one to give it a bite. And a little bit of color. Remember, color is always important. Tiny little bit of cheese, just a teeny tiny little bit of cheese. We've already got salt and pepper on the tomatoes, and we've already got salt and pepper on the chicken. So I feel confident that this is spiced pretty well. And then we'll just put a tiny little bit of cream on each one. Teeny tiny little bit on the top. Help it slide off the spoon a little better. Okay, teeny tiny little bit, and then we'll use the lettuce for garnish if you wanted to, and just to make it pretty. If you wanted to, you could take some garden onion and cut it on a slant and just stand up a couple of little pieces of onion in there. That would be pretty too. So just a tiny little taste of lettuce, and there you are. You've got a beautiful hors d'oeuvre. One thing you can do to make your food look a lot more professional is to make everybody's serving exactly the same amount and to line things up prettily on their plate. So there you go, a great idea for an appetizer and some wonderful smoked chicken tacos. Hope you'll come and join me again soon for more ideas in the Flavor Secrets Kitchen. I'm Chef Lynn. Enjoy.